Hello detectives! Today, we're uncovering the case of support vector regression, or SVR for short. It's a very clever and flexible algorithm used for regression problems. But before we dive into what makes it so special, let's step back and ask, why do we even need it? Imagine you have a set of data points that look almost like a straight line. For this simple case, even our trusty linear regression, which uses mean squared error as its loss function, would solve it easily. By the way, if you're not sure how linear regression works, don't worry. We've covered that mystery in another video, so check it out before continuing with this case. Now, detectives, with this simple dataset, we already get a great result using linear regression. The fitted line looks perfect when we use mean squared error, or MSE, as the loss function.
So, why make things complicated and bring in SVR here?
Good question, but let's give it a try anyway and see what happens. With this dataset, SVR should fit a line that's very similar to what linear regression gave us. And indeed, detectives, SVR gives us a line that's quite close to the one from linear regression.
But wait a minute. Why isn't it exactly the same? Why is there a small difference, even though it's barely noticeable?
Well, that's because SVR works differently under the hood. Instead of focusing on minimizing the overall error like linear regression does with MSE, SVR tries to fit the data within a margin. Think of it as a flexible rule. It doesn't stress about every tiny mistake as long as most points stay within a safe zone. Intriguing, right? To crack this case, we need to understand the key ideas behind support vector regression. First, there's something called the margin of tolerance, also known as the epsilon tube. And second, we have the support vectors, the key players from which SVR gets its name. Here's the deal. SVR forms a tube around its fitted line. This tube isn't just for show, it represents the margin of tolerance.
What does that mean?
It means SVR doesn't worry about small errors if they fall within this margin. No penalty is given for predictions that stay inside this tube. Fascinating, isn't it? And here's another critical clue, detectives. The points that SVR considers to fit the line are called support vectors. These special points sit either on the edge of the epsilon tube or outside it. They are the ones that determine the position of the fitted line. In other words, the line wouldn't be where it is without these key data points. That's why they're called support vectors. They support the line. You might be wondering, why ignore these data points? After all, the more data we have, the better the algorithm, right? Well, here's the secret. By ignoring the points inside the epsilon margin the tube, SVR focuses on the bigger patterns in the data. It avoids overfitting to those tiny variations that don't really tell us much about the true trend. Second, only the important points, those outside the tube, are used to influence the model. This means SVR reduces computational overhead and becomes less sensitive to individual data points. The result: faster training times, especially when working with large datasets that have a lot of extra or less important data. However, a word of caution: if we make the epsilon margin too large, we might end up missing crucial details in the data. It's essential to tune the epsilon margin carefully for your specific dataset to avoid losing valuable information. Now, here's an intriguing question. If we set epsilon to 0 in SVR, would it behave exactly like linear regression? The answer is no, because they optimize different loss functions. Let's explore their differences. Linear regression minimizes the mean squared error MSE. In linear regression, every error matters, big or small. Large errors are penalized more because of squaring, making LR sensitive to outliers. Its goal is to find the line or hyperplane that minimizes the squared differences between predictions and actual values. Whereas, SVR uses the epsilon insensitive loss function. Small errors within the epsilon margin are ignored. They don't count toward the loss. Only the larger deviations beyond the epsilon margin are penalized. Support vectors are the key players. Only these points outside the tube influence the optimization. There's also a regularization term to control the model's complexity, preventing it from overfitting.
Wait, what? What regularization term?
Let me clear the space to explain further. This is the objective function of support vector regression, which determines how the model balances simplicity and accuracy. W term controls the smoothness of the fitted line or, in simpler terms, the complexity of the model. By penalizing large weights, It helps the model avoid overfitting and keeps it general enough to work well on unseen data. C is a regularization hyperparameter, a knob we can adjust to control the trade-off between minimizing the error and keeping the model simple. A higher C means the model focuses more on minimizing the errors, which can reduce bias but might make the model too complex and prone to overfitting. A smaller C allows for more tolerance to errors, making the model simpler but possibly increasing bias. Remember, detectives, it's the balance between these two terms that makes SVR such a powerful tool for regression tasks.
What about K? What is it?
Up till now we have been working with linear kernel function. The dot products between the data points x and xj help determine the similarity between these points. These dot products are used during the optimization to find the best fitting regression line that minimizes the objective function. Let's assume just 3 data points for simplicity. Step 1. Setting up the model. In support vector regression, we assume a simple linear relationship between x and y, where w is the slope or weight of the line, and b is the intercept. These are the values we want to find to fit the best possible line through our data. Next, we introduce the concept of epsilon, or the tolerance margin. For simplicity, in this example, we'll set epsilon equals 1. This means that predictions within this margin around the actual value are considered good enough, and no penalty will be applied. Step 3. Calculating the loss for each data point. Now comes the interesting part, calculating the loss for each data point. In SVR, we use something called the epsilon insensitive loss. This means, if the predicted value is within epsilon of the actual value, we assign a loss of 0. If it's outside this margin, we calculate the loss using this formula. Let's compute the loss for these example points. For the first data point, where x1, y1 equals 1, 2, the predicted value y1 cap equals w multiplied by 1 plus b, which is equal to w plus b. The loss becomes ly1, y1 cap equals max of 0, absolute value of 2 minus w plus b minus 1. For the second data point where x2, y2 equals 2, 3, the loss becomes max of 0, absolute value of 3 minus 2 times w plus b minus 1. Similarly, the loss for third data point becomes max of 0, absolute value of 3 to 3 times w plus b minus 1. Adding losses for all the data points gives us the value of the second term of the objective equation. Step 4. Calculating the dot products with the kernel. Support vector regression involves a kernel function to compute dot products between data points. This gives us a kernel matrix. Let's calculate the first row of the kernel matrix step by step using our example points. The kernel matrix is used to compute the interactions between data points. Row 1. Interactions of point 1 with all points. First, we calculate the dot product of x1 with itself. Next, the dot product of x1 and x2. And finally, the dot product of x1 and x3. So, the first row of the kernel matrix is 1, 2, 3. This process is repeated for the other rows to compute their values. In the end, the kernel matrix for these 3 points looks like this. Each element of this matrix represents the interaction between 2 points, helping us understand the relationships in the data. Step 5. Setting up the optimization problem. Finally, we set up the optimization problem. Our goal is to minimize the objective function. How exactly this quadratic optimization works is beyond the scope of this video, but you can think of it as a mathematical process that finds the best values of w and b to minimize this function. With these steps, we've built an understanding of how support vector regression works, from setting up the model to defining the loss and solving the optimization problem. It's a robust method, offering flexibility with its epsilon margin and regularization to avoid overfitting. Wow! Thank you for sticking with me as we explored how support vector regression SVR works. I hope everything made sense and you feel more confident about SVR now. See you in the next lecture. Wait. Did I say I've explained everything? Let's hold on for a second. SVR still has a few tricks up its sleeve that we haven't covered yet. For instance, imagine our training data looks like this. If we fit SVR with linear kernel, it would look like this. But SVR can do better than this. It changes its kernel to poly.
How can SVR do this if SVR always represent a linear line?
SVR doesn't limit itself to just the dimensions we can easily see. It has a clever trick. It extends into higher dimensions, transforming the data to make the problem easier to solve. Imagine a new dimension being added, like pulling a flat sheet into a 3D space. In this higher dimensional space, SVR works hard to find that straight line, or more precisely, a hyperplane, that best fits the data. By increasing the dimensions, SVR can handle even the most complex datasets, separating and predicting with precision. Our kernel function becomes. Let's break this down even further. When SVR increases the dimension of the data, it often transforms it into a second degree or even higher dimensional space. This process is essential for capturing patterns in more complex datasets. Now, here's the cool part. Even though we've stepped into higher dimensions, the loss function and objective function remain the same. SVR is still hunting for the best values of W and B, just now in this expanded space. And this brings us to a key concept called the kernel trick. The kernel trick is like a shortcut for working in higher dimensional spaces. Kernel function calculates the inner product of data points as if they were in a higher dimensional space, but without actually transforming them. This saves a lot of time and effort. This method avoids the computational burden of explicitly working in these high dimensions, making it super efficient, even for spaces with infinite dimensions. In simple words, the kernel trick lets SVR do all the heavy lifting without us ever seeing the higher dimensions. It's like solving a puzzle with an invisible cheat code. Alright, detectives, we've unraveled the mysteries of support vector regression step by step. We saw how SVR fits a tube around the data, focusing only on the clues that matter, the support vectors. We explored the epsilon margin, its unique loss function, and even ventured into higher dimensions using the kernel trick. There are other kernel functions in SVR's arsenal, like sigmoid and radial basis functions, which take the data to even higher dimensions, beyond what we can draw or imagine. But the concept remains the same, and I hope you've now grasped how SVR works. That's all for today, folks. If you enjoyed this investigation, like and subscribe to AlgoStalk for more exciting cases. Stay curious, keep solving, and I'll see you in the next video.